Well, hi there. How are you doing this evening? I hope you're doing well. How are you doing? You doing all right? Good. Okay. If you haven't been here before, my name is Rusty, and this is my horror and metal music channel where I talk about my favorite films, mostly horror, and talk about my favorite music, mostly metal. And tonight we are continuing our journey in anticipation and celebration of the upcoming Steam 5. So we are going to start going down the Scream 2 road. As usual, we are going to tell our little campfire story to get things going. Steam? I was just playing some games earlier. Scream 2 was released in 1997, directed by Wes Craven, of course, and it is wonderfully 2 hours long, so I love that. And we, of course, begin our story with Jada Pinkett Smith's opening scene. She is the star of the opener for this sequel, and which, became a main feature of the Scream franchise was the opening kill, and this one stars Jada Pinkett Smith and what's his name? Omar Epps, is that who it is? But anyway, now there has been a movie made about the first Scream called Stab, taken from a book by Gail Weathers, of course. And it's been turned into a movie called Stab, and Jada Pinkett Smith is there with her boyfriend to witness the premiere. There's a lot of funny talk about, what she thinks of horror movies, and preferring to see a Sandra Bullock movie, but they managed to get over that, and they go into this almost Rocky Horror Picture Show like atmosphere of the premiere, where everybody's wearing Ghostface suits and carrying little stab knives and stuff. It's really cool, very good. The banter between Jada Pinkett Smith and her boyfriend is really good. What's her name? Maureen. So, she ends up like going out to the lobby for a little bit to get some popcorn and stuff like that, and then on her way back she runs into him, where he kind of asks her what she's so bitchy about, and he says we can go see we can go see that movie, but she's like, no, we'll continue to watch this one. So he's going to go to the bathroom first. So he goes to that, and we get this really cool scene, a really cool kill, where I guess the person is saying all of these really weird things, and actually it's kind of he goes in there into the stall to take a leak, only to hear some person in the other stall saying some really weird stuff about mommy this and mommy that, and that's kind of important. But if you've never noticed, you can go back and rewatch this. Scream 2, Courteney Cox, Neve Campbell, David Arquette, they all reprised their roles. And so you hear her talking, you hear someone saying something, sounds like a little boy or a little girl talking about mommy this or mommy that, and he sticks his head up to the wall to try to hear where Ghostface puts the knife through it right into his head. So didn't really see that coming, and that was a really good kill. And he obviously puts his jacket on and goes back into the movie theater, where he sits back down with Jada Pinkett Smith, and they, watching the movie a little bit, and she notices, snuggling up to him, that there's blood on him, at which point he then stabs her right there in front of everyone. But because of all of the commotion, she gets up and starts trying to make her way through the crowd while he continues to stab her. And she ends up like walking up onto the film screen, onto the stage, and drops dead right there in front of everybody, and nobody ever noticed that a real murder had just taken place until that moment. So once that opener is done, which was a phenomenal opener, it was, I liked it a great deal. That was a really good opener for the movie. They definitely, I think I've liked all of the openers for the movie. That was an especially good one. Nothing, of course, could ever top the front, the first one. So now we realize that Sydney has moved on to college, and so we're at the college town, and she is getting phone calls, harassing phone calls, but she just blows it up. Sydney's character, and that's one of the things about this franchise, is that the evolution and progression of these characters is just perfect. She's a little more mature. She's a little more used to what's has been going on. She's not as frightened or afraid. She's gotten stronger, and kind of just taking it all in stride as she tries to move on with her life. So we, discovered that Cotton has been freed because, now that everything that happened in the first movie, of course, Cotton has been freed, played by Liev Schreiber. So he has been freed, is one of the things that we learn. And, of course, the news of what has occurred is now reaching Sydney. So Sydney finds out that this murder has taken place at the premiere of basically a movie about her life. So that is brought to the forefront. So she has to deal with that, which she handles very well. And then we are introduced to a cameo by Sarah Michelle Gellar, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is in Randy's film class. We get to see Buffy, and so that was a big drill for me because I'm a total Buffy fanboy. So seeing Sarah Michelle in this movie was really cool, and it's not like a cameo or anything. She actually, she plays that. She's got, well, I guess it is. If you got three scenes, 2 scenes or 3 scenes, but they're very long. So I wouldn't really call her appearance a cameo. I guess screen time wise, she got as much as Drew Barrymore in the original. So she's a major cameo, if that's what you want to call it. But so we get to see that. We get to see that Randy has gotten cuter, if that was possible, but he is still very frustrated about being in love with Sydney or fascinated by her in any event. And of course now she has another boyfriend in the form of, and a very nice form of, Jerry O'Connell. And so he's Derek, and he plays her boyfriend. So she's got a new boyfriend to irritate Randy, just like Randy was irritated by Billy. So poor Randy, he doesn't get any breaks. But then again, that's what you get, because if you'd have just come and married me, you'd have been all right, is all I got to say about it. So that's the way I deal with these issues. I'm just like, well, Randy, you could have, life just didn't treat you right, baby, because if you'd have been on the other side of the fence, I'd have took care of your problem, and you wouldn't be in the situation that you're in. But I like to throw my little personal space into my movies, which I'm sure you all do in one form or another. So Gail shows back up because she's, of course, fascinated by the new murders. She's also wanting to do a very naughty thing which is she has, because she was always I wouldn't say fan, she was a supporter of Cotton. She is the one who helped save his life from death row. So, unbeknownst to us, the audience, and to poor Sydney, she has, decided to come and bring Cotton to the college for a meeting with Sydney. Puts her really on the spot. So, um, we meet Debbie Salt. Interesting name. Now, Debbie is actually the actress who plays Roseanne's sister in the old Roseanne Barr show. Before we found out that Roseanne Barr had devolved into an absolute lunatic. But yeah, so she was the sister of Roseanne Barr, and that's who plays Debbie in this movie. So I keep referring to my notes. I have to refer to my notes on these movies because there's so many little things that I picked out. But so at the same time about that, we meet the Delta Lambdas. Where's that screwdriver guy with the screwdriver guitar that likes to go? Was that Sorority Row or something like that? Slumber Party Massacre, whatever it is. The Delta Lambdas really needed that, in my opinion. They would, that's... So, Dewey's back. At this time, we get introduced to Dewey's back to come and see how Sydney's doing because of the news of the new murders. I really loved the progression of Dewey. Dewey was so, in this movie, in the first movie, he was so goofy, but in this movie, he is so damaged. I liked him even more in this movie than I did in the first one because his character progression had really went in the right direction after what he had been through. He's a simple, sensitive person anyway, so to have to go through what he had been through in town, unlike Sydney who had gotten stronger, Dewey was actually damaged, and you could really see the damage. He was hurt. And not just physically. I think he was hurt mentally and maybe even heart-wise, soul-wise. But I really felt sorry for Dewey in this one. He really pulled on the heartstrings because you could tell, it just broke my heart to see him walking with his limp. And, yeah, he just really, his character progression. Sydney got stronger, and he got, no, I wouldn't say weaker. It just affected him in a more damaged way. You know what I mean? So, Dewey's back, which was good. That's when Gail, and of course he's very, very angry at her because she's written this book about all their lives, and that's part of his pain, I think, and hurt was that she, called him things like Barney Fife and that's so untrue too. He wasn't like that. He really wasn't. He was a little goofy in the first one, but come on. Okay, maybe I'm giving him extra credit from what do they call it, crush credit? Maybe I'm giving him crush credit, but I don't think he was like that bad in the first one. He didn't act that goofy. He wasn't that goofy. He certainly wasn't Barney Fife material. Come on. So that's when we get to see the scene where Gail drops her bombshell, which is just out of the blue. She goes up to talk to Sydney, steps out of the way, and Cotton is standing there. And this is the guy that she put in death row. This is the guy that she thought for the longest time had murdered her mother. Now, granted, she feels sorry about what she did, as I'm sure you or anyone else would, if you got a guy wrongfully convicted, especially in a dangerous way that could have gotten them electrocuted or executed. So she felt bad about it, but that was like the really wrong thing to do. And once again, we get the Joan Collins dynasty moment where she gets to slap the hell out of the other female star. For anybody who ever watched Dynasty, that was the big thing. Joan Collins' character, Alexis, and Crystal, Linda Evans, they, they got their biggest ratings when those two had a cat fight. For them to go fighting was it. So we got to see that again. We got to see Sydney once again knock the absolute shit out of Gail. It's like the woman just never learns, right? So, Dewey confronts Gail about the horrible things that she wrote in the book, which I was really kind of angry with her too. I'm like, God, I know you're a bitch, but Jesus, you're messing with my Dewey, you know what I mean? And the stuff that she said about him was very hurtful, and it did hurt him. And I'm sounding really whiny about Dewey, aren't I? I'm sorry. I just don't like to see, well, people that I have crush on anyway, I don't like to see them messed with by other people. And what she did to Dewey was just totally uncalled for, yeah? But he confronts her about the horrible things that she said in the book. And she does her usual, I'm trying to hurt you. And he's like, how do you know? And I really liked this when he said, how do you know that my behavior isn't a facade to hide the fact that I'm really, really very astute, and it keeps people off guard so that they, don't know that I'm an astute person, and it can allow me inroads. It's like, you're going to, if you think that I'm stupid, it makes a lot of sense. If you think that I'm stupid, then you're not really going to pay attention to what you're saying around me. I mean, actually, right? I mean, I'm harmless, yeah? I'm nothing you've got to worry about. So he's actually really correct in a psychological standpoint that, so I loved it when he said that, how do you know that my facade, that this, what you call this Barney Fife's facade, how do you know that it's not just me projecting that so that people don't realize what a threat I am as far as figuring out what you're up to? And I admit that I do that a lot and have done that a lot in my life. It's like, I know what you're up to, but I'm not going to confront you. I'm just going to let you hang yourself. I'm going to give you the rope and see if you'll pull enough of it to hang yourself, or if you will be a good person and not do what I think you're doing. Because if you're doing what I think you're doing, I'm going to get you. But I'm not going to let you know that I know, because that's insincere. If a person brings you flowers because you told them to, those flowers don't mean shit. Okay? Just telling you. If you've got a person out there, boyfriend or girlfriend, and they bring you an anniversary gift or something like that because you reminded them on Facebook, it's not the same thing as if they actually remembered to do it. So I have always kind of been that way too. So I totally understood what he meant when he said, maybe I'm just doing this and I'm a very astute person, but I just stay low key so that you don't know what's going on. I've done that a lot in my life. Hey, I think you're up to something, but I'm not going to let you know that I think you're up to it, because I'm just going to wait and see if you're actually going to try to pull some shit, or if you're going to realize that that's not a nice thing to do and not do it. Usually, of course, we're wrong. But, so he confronts her about that, and then we move on. The Lambders are going to have a party. They want, for the fame aspect, they want Sydney to join their, party, so or join their sorority. So they're going to have a party over here. Meanwhile, this other sorority, most of them are attending the party, but Cece, that's Sarah Michelle Gellar's character, we basically get a repeat of the Drew Barrymore opening kill. CC is left alone. We get this nice, long, drawn-out cat and mouse game and murder of CC, which, so I thought that was a very interesting thing, that they had basically an opening kill and a perfect other opening kill, but they put them in both movies, because Cece's kill in this movie could have been an opener in and of itself. It could have been like the opener of the original, or the opener of another one, so I thought that was interesting, because I don't know if anybody else felt that way, but it really felt like a Scream opener, the CC kill part. But I thought that was great. So you have the party, and CC's body is found, so now everybody is, up that. Sydney starts getting called and attacked. Sydney gets attacked, so we have the first attack on Sydney. Everybody is aware of it. We, of course, see Gail hanging around looking for a story, and this Debbie person who is sort of like she idolizes Gail as a reporter, so she's a local reporter. So she's kind of looking for fame on the level of Gail. So, you're always seeing her pop up here and there, too, in these situations. It's at this point, though, when Sydney is attacked, that just like in the first movie, Derek, the boyfriend, because of the circumstances, he gets suspected, like Billy had been suspected, which makes Sydney feel really fucked up, because it's like a flashback all over again. You have another boyfriend who, for all intents and purposes, looks like he could be the killer. So, there's Wes Craven's first little side swipe, on you. Dewey and Gail, I believe Randy, they start, trying to figure things out. And one of the things that they notice is that the names of the victims so far, from Maureen and her boyfriend and everything, is matching names from the original, which is making them think that maybe whoever's doing it this time, is also from their original hometown. So Derek is suspected. They start kind of figuring out that a lot of the victims' real names and all were matching names of the original victims from the first movie. Then we move on to the cute scene of Derek trying to make up to Sydney, and so he does this big Partridge Family song, I Think I Love You, which I actually love that song. I've got the album with that song on it, and actually there's this guy named Declan Galbraith. He did a remake of I Think I Love You from the Partridge Family, and his is my favorite. I think I like it even better than the Partridge Family version. But so I actually love that song, and Derek made me blush, I think, when he was doing that, because you're like, oh my god, what if somebody did that to you in front of everybody? You can't do nothing but play along. But I really like Jerry O'Connell in this movie. I thought he was really cool. So you have that, and then one of the little Easter eggs in it was that they had talked about who, they had made fun of Sydney as, who was going to portray her in a movie, and they I can't remember who they said should do it, but she had said, "Oh no, with my luck, I would get Tori Spelling." And sure enough, they show an interview with Tori Spelling because Tori Spelling is playing Sydney in Stab. So there's a lot, just like in the original. There's a lot of cute little side roads and Easter eggs and funny things like that. So you got to see Tori Spelling playing Sydney, and which I totally agree with. I mean, that chick. It's not that I hate her or anything, but everything that Tori Spelling got or did, you know why she got it. It was just total the money, baby, because she's not attractive and she's not a good actor, and it's just, well, that's a whole different little personal opinion thing going on there, but I really got the joke, and I think the joke is really funny. Oh my luck, I'll get Tori Spelling to play me, and then sure enough, there's Tori Spelling playing her. So I thought that was really cool. Randy, Gail, and Dewey, you know, plan. They had been trying to figure out, what's going on. Sydney and the drama theater. Okay, so I'm just going to start reading my notes out loud, right? Sydney and the drama theater. Okay, now we kind of realize that the one of the sets of the movie takes place on campus at the drama theater, and there's a lot of this movie that takes place in there. So we're introduced to this by Sydney is playing Cassandra in a play, and they're showing the rehearsals, which we have a cool cameo from I can't think of his name, but everybody knows him. He played Jack the Ripper in Time After Time with Malcolm McDowell. I love him. He's a great character actor, so it was really cool to see him. So you get to see her rehearse this play. I think that was the only time in this movie I was like really bored, was like that little section right there. But at the same time, it's needed though, because it sets up the rest of the movie. But you don't know it at the time, so during the time that you're watching that scene, you can be a little bored, you know. Um, Kind of like, what are they doing? It's just like, what is this? It doesn't make sense. But you find out later, so it kind of like explains it away, and you understand why you're dealing with this scene. So now you move back into the courtyard the next day. She breaks up with Derek that night because she has such a panic attack with that, doing the scene that they were rehearsing on stage, that she breaks up with Derek. So, that's it. And we're back in the quad the next day. And you see Dewey and Gail and Randy once again trying to theorize and figure things out, when all of a sudden Randy gets a call, or actually it was to Gail's phone, but Randy picked it up, and he got a phone call from the killer, and the killer's watching them. They're in the quad in broad daylight. So they're like running around trying to figure out what's going on, when all of a sudden, Randy is grabbed, and he says some really cool dialogue right there too while he's talking on the phone with the killer. So he gets grabbed and pulled into the van and viciously killed. Viciously killed. I was very upset by this. I was very, very upset by that. I did not want to see Randy get splattered. We're all invested in different people for different reasons, and I really liked Randy. I didn't want to see him get killed, but so he got knifed, and that was it. Randy's killed. What is it? So we have Cotton and Sydney's confrontation comes after this. after they've discovered, Randy dead and and all of that part of the movie takes place, you have a confrontation between Sydney and Cotton, in which Cotton sort of reveals to her that the reason that he is there was because he wanted to ask her to be in an interview with Diane Sawyer. And and I kind of understood where he was coming from, because basically what he was telling her is like, I'm not asking a whole lot from you, but you did put my ass on death row. And he's basically wanting some fame, money, payback, which I can totally understand for sitting on death row for a year. And that's what he ends up telling her was, look, the real reason that I'm here is because she's willing to do this, and it would make us, but only if we're together. So she refuses, which I thought was a little rude of her. I mean, I know she doesn't want to relive it all, but come on. I would be a little bit more sympathetic to the person that I put on death row, but she's going through a lot of stuff, so you have to make up your own mind what you think about it. But I thought that she could have been a little bit more accommodating, to him. So, Gail and Dewey, still trying to figure out how they lost Randy, is watching videotapes of all of her, interviews and recordings. And, excuse me. And that's when she notices some of her tape was not from her cameraman. And, boom, there's Ghostface. So we have this gigantic up and down fight between Ghostface, Gail, and Dewey. And once again, we are led to believe that Dewey is dead. He is attacked and killed right in front of Gail. So you're like, well, that sucks. And because you really do talk about a person with 9 lives, you know what I'm saying? Because once again, there he is doing that. So Dewey gets slashed. In the meantime, Derek, who had given his necklace, which is against sorority rules, to Sydney back in the cafeteria scene where he sang, the song to her, I Think I Love You. His sorority brothers finally catch up with him, and they take him into that theater where they tie him up and kind of like pour beer on him and humiliate him and stuff like that, because of, it's against sorority rules to give your sorority letters to anyone, besides yourself. So he hasn't ended up tied up there, sort of like Christ, on the stage, and that's when yeah, okay. So Sydney, at this time though, that's been happening to him, Cindy has been told to leave because of what's going on. So Sydney is leaving in a car with the 2 bodyguards that has been watching her, the FBI type agents. And she's leaving town while Derek has been tied up in the thing. We think Dewey is dead, or, to the audience, Dewey is dead. Gail is, flipped out. Derek is being tied up, and Sydney and her friend are leaving town when Ghostface attacks, manages into a pretty fantastic scene to kill the 2 bodyguards. They're trapped in the back seat, and the only way to get out is Sydney has to take down the police wire and climb out and over Ghostface. Now, why she didn't just pull the mask off right then and there, but it's a movie. You have to, they can't reveal yet. So, not only does she manage to get out in a very tense situation, but her friend manages to get out. And they're going down the street, but Sydney wants to go back and take the mask off, which, like, of course, who wouldn't? So she turns around and goes back down there to take the mask off, only Ghostface isn't there, of course. Turns around and watches her friend get murdered right up there, and he comes after her, and boom, boom, boom. We're all back into the theater again. So we, I guess what you would call the final boss battle, right? Because here we are in, back down into the theater where everything is happening. I remember Derek is tied up, and it ensues. Ghostface is trying to kill her. They're on the thing. They're on the stage. Ghostface is trying to kill her. Derek has dropped from the ceiling in his I think he's supposed to be Zeus or something like that, but he has dropped down and he's hanging there, but he's still alive, and she starts to take his masking tape and stuff like that off of him where he was tied. So she starts to take that off, and then there's Ghostface. He jumps up on the stage and rips it off, and it's Mickey. Now, what was interesting about Mickey is that Mickey played very, very little in the movie. He was so over here. He was so in so few scenes, and he was so unimportant in the movie that I think that's why Wes Craven, I think that's why they did that, was because he was so underplayed and sort of on the sidelines that when he takes his hat, when he takes the mask off and it's a Mickey, you're like, but I didn't even notice him in the movie. Because he really, he's in scenes throughout the movie, but he is so secondary. He's so nothing. And so that really did kind of freak me out. I remember the first time I saw it, that really, because you do kind of go, who? Oh, him. What's his problem? What's his deal? What's his connection to anything? Well, it, you're left thinking that, and he pisses me off because he shoots Derek right in the chest too. There's no 9 lives coming back from that kill. You know what I mean? So Derek is really dead. Sydney's freaking out, and you have Mickey give a really big monologue, which was pretty cool. He gives a monologue where he's talking about his plans and how he's going to get off, and how he's going to claim that it was video violence, and that he would even have the Christian Coalition paying his law, which he probably would, because they would eat something like that up. So all of the stuff that he said was really relevant and probably really true, so you're kind of like really mesmerized by his monologue. And at first he had tried to make it out like Derek was his partner, but then he killed him, so that's not true. So that's when he reveals to Sydney that, enter stage left, and then out walked Debbie Salt, that local reporter. Well, he introduces her as Mrs. Loomis, because that's what Sydney said. Sydney was like, Mrs. Loomis? But, and then Debbie was like, well, 60 pounds in a makeover, it's called a makeover. So yes, so Billy's mother is revealed to be the mastermind of this whole thing. So that was the big reveal for Scream 2, was that it was Billy's mom. she had found Mickey on some kind of dark web serial killer website and had encouraged him and had funded him and had partnered with him to do this, to get all of that. So you have this, huge boss fight between Debbie, or Mrs. Loomis, and Sydney. And right when you think that Sydney's fixing to lose, Cotton saves the day. And Gail had been shot earlier by Mickey during this whole giant runaround on stage with the big, what I call the boss fight of this movie. So she had been shot and fell off. I can't remember if Miss Loomis shot her or if Mickey shot her. But either way, so she's been shot. You don't know what's happened to her. And you think when Mickey is stopped, when Mickey is taken out, you think for a second that it was Gail. It must be Gail. Instead, it turns out to be Cotton. So Cotton saves Cindy, and then Debbie, Mrs. Loomis is like holding a knife to Sydney's throat, and Cotton is right there. And she is like giving some really good rational reasons why Cotton should switch sides and be with her. But now you've known Cotton now for the whole movie. And I think that, I never got any bad vibes off of Cotton other than him being pissed off, which he had every right to be, and wanting a little recognition and a little apology and a little payback for what had been done to him. So when that little scene was going on where Mrs. Loomis was like trying to talk him into, you need to kill this bitch, you need to kill her, because why not? I mean, look what she did to you. And that's when Cotton looked at Sydney and was kind of like, well, I bet that she's making sense. And I bet that interview with Diane Sawyer, I think it was Diane Sawyer, right? I may be wrong about that. It might be the other lady from 2020. I can't remember. But I bet that interview is looking really good for you right now. And that's when Sydney kind of like gets the greatest idea she's ever had. And that's when she decided, you got a deal. And he shoots Debbie. So, he shoots Debbie. And then Gail jumps up from the off stage there, which scares them all, including Cotton. And he's like, is anyone else down there? So that was funny. That whole scene was really great. It was a really good boss fight. So Wes Craven had definitely pulled it off again, and for this series. So we did have the, who was it? Gail and Cotton and Sydney is standing over the body of Debbie, and they were talking, like, well, they always come back, right? And then Mickey, though, is still alive. So you're expecting Debbie to jump up, but Mickey is the one that jumps up. So he jumps up, and they shoot him. So there's your scare factor. And then they're looking down at Miss Loomis again, and they're like, I don't know. And then Sydney shoots her in the head, in the forehead, and it's like, why did you do that? And it's like, well, let's just be sure, yeah? So we're wanted to be sure. So, and that was it. It was definitely a fantastic sequel. I loved it. It worked perfectly. I really enjoyed the progression that the characters had went through, the evolution that they had gone through. I was really most moved by Dewey you know, which of course we find out that Dewey is still alive. Um, so that was happy, but Gail, yeah, Gail was continuing on her bitchy way. Um, Sydney seemed to have become more together, more strong, um, and Dewey had become more damaged. I think really it had brought out a lot of humanity in him, and I really never thought that Dewey was as dumb as he presented himself to be, but because I never took it that way. Like even in the first movie, he was like goofy, but we're not talking eight-legged freaks kind of goofy. His character wasn't that way. He was just kind of a little goofy and a little innocent and a little geeky. You know, that's the way that I took Dewey. So I never really bought into that thing. That's the reason why I was like really offended by the stuff that Gail wrote about him in that book, and he should have been too. So, but we all know what happens later in the series. So, um, you know, they, I guess they're kind of made for each other, but at the same time, you know, that was really wrong what she had done. So yeah, the progression of the characters, the overall presentation of this movie was definitely a worthy and exciting sequel to the original. I love the way that they continued the story and came up with a viable and understandable story. I really love the actors. I love Liev, Schreiber. Um, I think Randy's character, had it not been killed off, I think that he had progressed away. He seemed more mature and um, everything. So yeah, they all did a fantastic job in this movie. I loved Jada Pinkett Smith's cameo scenes. I loved Sarah Michelle Gellar's scenes in this movie. There weren't quite as many meta references or anything in this movie as the first one, but there was enough to, you know, tickle your Easter egg bone or boner or whatever. So yeah, you had Jerry O'Connell, who was fantastic in this movie. Movie was once again full of eye candy, which is always a good thing for a slasher. So at least he knew how to pick pretty people. And yeah, there you go, 1997. This movie, once again, it was a little longer than the first one, just the way I like them, 2 hours long. Um, Everything about it was great. I'm trying to think if I had any negatives. Did I say any negatives? It's the first one, like, Stewart really gets on my fucking nerves, but this one, the only negatives are as usual with movies I love. It's just personal ones. You know, you killed Randy and that pissed me off. Um, but that's just personal. It has nothing to do with the movie. So I don't really. There was, like I said, there was that one slow scene where where she had the panic attack on the stage. That whole little 10-minute scene there was kind of boring to me, but at the same time, I understand its place in the movie. So yeah, overall, I loved the reveal. I loved who it turned out to be. It was all acceptable to me. I didn't have any eye rolls or problems, and that's Scream 2. So, tell me your thoughts about Scream 2 if you have any, and argue with me about mine. And I think I hit all of my notes. My little, don't forget this, don't forget that, this means something to me. This is what I thought about this. I'm not just going to try to think up shit off the top of my head, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm not that big a geek about each and every one of these movies, you know what I mean? But thank you for joining me and tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful evening and come back and see me with the next one, which will be, I don't know, I think it's called Scream 3. We'll come back and do that as we move forward to the release of Scream 5, which is on the way. So we've got 2 more of these to do. I appreciate your time. Love you, miss you, bye. And I will see you in the next one. So stay scary and keep screaming when appropriate, and only when appropriate. Otherwise, you might scare someone needlessly. You know what I mean? See you later.